I am always reading a book, and this year is no exception. I've already read about 10 books in the first half of 2026, so I'm going to share with you some of them and what they've taught me about communication or just life lessons in general. The first one is Made to Stick. And this is a really great book if you're learning to write for marketing or communications, because it breaks down what makes ideas survive, basically. And it really comes down to 6 different principles. If you keep it simple, unexpected, concrete, and credible, also include emotion and then storytelling. If you can do that, you can make content stick. This is a great book that I would recommend for anybody that's looking to learn how to come up with new ideas, how to get people to latch on to new ideas. I highly recommend it. Next up, fiction book, When the Cranes Fly South. This is such a good book, and it's a lesson in slowing down time through writing, because it's about this old man who has a dog named Sixton. He is dying, the man is, and as he approaches the end of his life, he has to say goodbye to his family, he has to say goodbye to his dog, and he has to say goodbye to some of the abilities that he has, like how to just do everyday tasks. The really cool thing about this, and the lesson I would take away from it, is that throughout the book, you're reading different descriptions of what the old man is doing. And you're reading about how it takes so much effort to do these different tasks. And the author really does a great job of slowing down time as you read it. The whole book is not very long. I think it's like 300 pages, maybe less, but it's a great read. This would be a great read during like the fall, the winter, sometime when it's getting cold outside and you just want to like have a comfort book. I don't know. I loved it. It's sad, so prepare yourself, but it's a masterpiece in like writing to provoke emotions and how to, just slow time down through writing. It's great. Next up, Hooked. So this is a book that's kind of similar to Made to Stick in that it talks about how to build habit-forming products. So it really breaks down habit-forming products into 4 different steps, and those are to trigger, then you have an action, then you have variable reward, and then you have an investment. And then once you go through that step, you do it all over again, and that's how products get hooked. I would not say that this is a book that's going to teach you a lot about writing, but what it is going to do is help you understand how products get you hooked, like how certain things get you addicted to them. Read it and then ask yourself if you're getting hooked to different products. Ask yourself like what part of the steps of this psychology of habits you're falling into. I recommend it. Next up, we have another fiction, and that is Buckeye by Patrick Ryan. This is a really interesting book. I'm a huge fan of history, and I don't love fiction, but this is historical fiction kind of in a way. It spans 40 years and 2 or 3 wars, and basically talks about this family or these multiple families that's lives get intertwined together and through a series of choices. So the big takeaway on this book is how small choices can have big consequences, and sometimes it's not about how you live with those choices, but how you embrace them. So it got me at the end, and I'm not going to spoil it for you, but it got me at the end because there's a point where it talks about how the main character wrote a letter to herself, or one of the main characters writes a letter to herself when she's young, and then she pulls it back out when she's older to see kind of like what things that she wrote still pertain to her elderly self. And it gave me a really good idea to do that. So I don't know, another great book, great for just a fiction book that you want to sit back and hear a great story, but it is a little long, and I would highly recommend it. Next up, Viktor Frankl, Man's Search for Meaning. Viktor Frankl was a Holocaust survivor, and he breaks down his whole trip through concentration camps, and it's terribly sad. It's a very heavy book. Man, just the way that he talks about suffering and how he gets through, how he got through life in a concentration camp. I mean, it's gonna bring tears to your eyes. It's very emotional, it's very heavy, but it's a must read. I think everybody should read Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. All right, next up, this is more instructional. It's Writing That Works. All right, so this book is very dated. You're gonna get a lot of recommendations for this book from communications professionals, from people that do a lot of writing. But here's the thing, this book was written in a time when emails were not very prominent, I guess. It was more of like letter writing and that kind of thing. Don't get me wrong, there's a lot of things in here that you can apply, but a lot of it's common sense. I personally would skip this book. I wouldn't recommend it because it is very instructional and it's very dated. So it's nice to get a perspective, but I don't love it. I wouldn't recommend it. This is another one that's a quick read, and it talks about how when you're in a creative mode, when you're trying to create, you're presented with the enemy. The enemy could be somebody that is like trying to get your attention away from your creative task, or it could just be yourself. You might be discouraged one day. I really use this book to break through some of the challenges I had with posting videos on YouTube, because if you ever get to where you want to post videos on YouTube, you will find that there's a time where you start to ask yourself, is anybody watching? Why am I doing this? There's a lot of ruts that you go through. But the biggest thing in this is that you're going through these different battles with yourself, with others, with environment around you, and that's part of the art of war. That's part of the war of art. If you can get through those little battles, you're gonna be a lot more creative in the long run. And the biggest thing is like getting over some of your insecurities. I would recommend picking this book up before you start any creative endeavor, and I love it. All right, Super Communicators. This book is a really good book about communicating with other people, and the author, Charles Duhigg, he breaks down communication into 3 different categories. Are you communicating to be helped, hugged, or heard? And when you figure out what the other person's intention is behind their communication, it makes it much easier for you to adapt to that communication. For example, if somebody is coming to you for advice and you're giving them emotional support, you're gonna have a little bit of a conflict there, and it's not gonna be a very positive interaction. But if somebody's coming to you for advice and you give them advice, it's much more, it's a much smoother interaction. The biggest thing I took away is that a lot of times I will come to somebody and I just want to be heard. I just kind of want to like vent or talk, and then they start trying to help, and it clicks to me that like we're having 2 different conversations. And I don't know, it's a great book. It's not very long. It's packed with information. I did a video on it, and I did a video on a lot of these books, and I can link them in the channel, but really breaking it down further. But yeah, great book, Super Communicators. Next up, this was my summer reading. Started it, took me like a month to read. This is Lonesome Dove. Okay, so I read this book because I saw a lot of people picking it up, and I saw it getting recommended on like Instagram and YouTube. It's a book from the 80s, but it's making like a resurgence because the story is so great. It's about these former Texas Rangers that herd cattle from Lonesome Dove, Texas to Montana. But the journey they take is so massive. It's a big undertaking. And they have help, they have a whole crew with them. This book is long because it has to be long. And what it taught me is that some literature, some books, you have to make them long so the other person can feel the journey. Now, if you're writing a communication that's instructional, you don't want to make it very long. But this book has to be long because if it was short, you wouldn't get the gravity of the journey and you wouldn't see a glimpse into every day of their life as they're making this journey. I highly recommend it. It's going to take you a long time to read. When you finish reading it, you feel like you've made that journey with them. Lonesome Dove, I would check it out. Put it on your summer reading list. Yeah. And last but not least, Theo of Golden. This is the most heartwarming book I have ever read. I loved it because it captures, I don't want to spoil it, but it captures this old man's perspective into this southern town, and he goes into this coffee shop and he sees a series of portraits that are drawn by a local artist, and he picks one up and he gives it to the person that was the subject of the portrait. So when he gives it to him, he gets a glimpse into their life, he learns about them and what makes them tick. But there's twist at the end that I would say like brings this book into a very full heart. Like you will leave reading this book and you'll put it down and you'll need to go for a walk because there's a lot to process, but it makes you look at people a lot differently. I would read this book if you're looking to learn how to see somebody for who they are and look beyond the superficial descriptions we normally rely on. It's a wonderful book. I would highly recommend it. That's the book that I would say, like, if you're going to go out and get a book today to read, pick up Theo of Golden. You won't regret it. Each of these books taught me something, and it may not be something that relates to communication, but by reading regularly, you're going to build a much stronger skill of communicating with others. So I would highly recommend picking up a book, pick something up, and just start reading. Read like 20 pages a day, and you'll be a much better communicator. You'll learn to write better. You'll be more articulate. That's what I've learned from reading. So these are the ones that I've read in the first half of 2026. If you don't mind, drop a comment with some of the books that you'd recommend, because I'm always looking for a new book to pick up. What do you recommend I read for the next half of the year? And thanks for watching. This is your Communication Space.